The room smelled faintly of disinfectant and old coffee. The humming of the fluorescent lights above was the only sound cutting through the silence. Across from me sat two federal agents, calm, professional, unreadable. They were the kind of people who didn't react to much, but even they looked uneasy when I slid the flash drive across the table. "This contains everything," I said quietly. "The video, the upload logs, the accounts, all of it." That was how justice began. Not with shouting, not with tears, but with evidence. 2 days earlier, I was just Lena Carter, a 22-year-old journalism student, home for a weekend I thought would remind me what family felt like. I had spent months buried in finals and internships, and my mom, Elaine, had begged me to come home for my birthday. "You've been working too hard, honey," she'd said over the phone. "We'll throw you a little party. Mark's planning something fun." Mark, my stepbrother. The word alone made my stomach twist. He was 24, smug, magnetic in that fake charm kind of way. People loved him instantly, especially my mom and my stepfather, David. To them, he was the golden boy, the one who could light up a room. To me, he was the reason I'd learned to lock my door at night and pretend laughter didn't sting. Still, I told myself it couldn't be that bad. I was older now. We could act like adults. The night of the party, the backyard shimmered with string lights. Pop music thumped from speakers. The air smelled like grilled burgers, and everyone, old high school friends, neighbors, even David's business associates, gathered around to cheer. Mark handed me a red cup, his grin wide and careless. "Come on, birthday girl," he said. "Lighten up. You're the guest of honor." I hesitated. The last time I'd trusted him, I'd ended up crying in my room after he posted a funny video of me tripping in heels. But my mom was watching, smiling hopefully. So I smiled back and took the drink. That single sip changed everything. At first, the night blurred in harmless laughter. People dancing, Mark joking, someone pushing cake in my face. I remember flashes. The world spinning, my knees wobbling, voices echoing in a tunnel. Then, darkness. When I opened my eyes the next morning, sunlight sliced through my blinds. My head pounded. My mouth was dry. My clothes were wrinkled and smelled like spilled soda and shame. My phone buzzed nonstop. Group chats, tags, mentions. And then I saw it. Videos. Dozens of them. Me, half-conscious, slurring, laughing weakly while Mark and his friends filmed. Cake smeared across my face. Someone yelling, "Happy birthday, party queen!" while I tried to stand up. The captions made me sick. "Guess journalism girl can't handle shots." Drunk and done. Lena's wild night. Mark's sis knows how to party. Hundreds of likes. Dozens of laughing emojis. My body trembled as I scrolled. Every post was worse than the last. I ran downstairs, heart racing. Mark sat at the kitchen table eating cereal, scrolling his phone like nothing had happened. "What did you do?" I shouted. He looked up, chewing lazily. "Relax, Lena. It's a joke. You were fine." "You drugged me." He laughed. "God, you're dramatic. I gave you one drink. You just don't know how to have fun." My mother froze by the sink, soap dripping from her hands. "Mark, that's not funny," she said softly, but when my stepfather walked in, her voice died. David sighed and folded his newspaper. "What's this now?" "He drugged me," I said, shaking. "He humiliated me online." He looked at Mark, then back at me. "I'm sure it's being blown out of proportion." "Boys will be boys, Lena. Stop being dramatic." That sentence, "Boys will be boys." It wasn't just dismissal. It was betrayal. The world seemed to tilt, every sound muffled except the blood pounding in my ears. I stared at them, my so-called family, and realized I was utterly alone in that room. But something in me snapped into focus. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I walked upstairs, closed my door, and stared at my reflection. My eyes were red, my face pale, but behind the exhaustion, something cold and clear took hold. "If they won't believe me," I whispered to myself, "then they'll believe the evidence." I didn't know it yet, but that was the night I stopped being the victim. By the time the sun rose again, I had already started pulling every thread that would unravel Mark's perfect little life. And 48 hours later, when the FBI kicked down our front door, I didn't feel fear or anger, just justice. They called me dramatic. I tell the agents now, sliding the flash drive closer, but I guess the law disagreed. The screen fades to black as my voice continues. Some lessons hurt, some wake you up, and some put your stepbrother in handcuffs. When I came home that weekend, I wanted peace. Nothing more, nothing less. College life had been hectic. Deadlines, coffee-fueled nights, and endless lectures about integrity and truth. I'd spent months away from home, hoping distance would soften the edges of what my family used to feel like. Mom had been calling me for weeks. "Lena, you barely visit anymore," she'd said. "We miss you here. Let's do something special for your birthday." Her voice carried warmth, a softness that reminded me of childhood mornings before everything changed. Before David, before Mark, before home stopped feeling safe. When she mentioned Mark was planning my party, I hesitated. I still remembered the last time he planned something, a prank that left me crying in the school hallway. But Mom sounded so hopeful, so desperate for a family moment, that I swallowed my doubt. "Sure, Mom," I'd said, "let's try it." I arrived that Friday evening. The house looked spotless, polished, like it had been scrubbed clean for guests. Mom rushed to hug me, her perfume warm and familiar. For a second, I allowed myself to feel comfort. Then I saw him, Mark Carter, standing in the doorway, beer in hand, smirking like he owned the place. "Look who finally decided to show up," he said. "Miss College Girl." His voice carried that same mocking tone it always did, half joking, half venom. I forced a smile, not because I wanted to, but because I'd learned that peace with Mark only lasted when you didn't challenge him. "Nice to see you too," I said, my tone flat. David Carter, my stepfather, appeared next, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing his signature press shirt even though it was a Friday night. "Lena," he greeted curtly, "hope school's treating you well." That was David, polite on the surface, cold underneath. Ever since he'd married my mother 6 years ago, he'd treated me like a guest overstaying her welcome. To him, I wasn't his daughter. I was Elaine's girl. And Mark, his biological son, was the golden child. Charming, outgoing, a reflection of himself. The way David looked at him said everything. The way he looked at me said the rest. Still, I tried. For Mom's sake. I always did. The next morning, preparations began early. Balloons, lights, and decorations filled the backyard. I watched from the porch as Mark directed the setup like a director running a film. "Make sure the speakers face the pool. More lights on this side, guys. It's got to look good for the videos." Videos. That word should have been a warning, but at the time, I just thought he was obsessed with showing off online, like always. Mom fluttered around in a floral apron, asking me to help with cupcakes, smiling the way mothers do when they believe everything is fine. "It'll be good for you both," she said. "You and Mark. Maybe this can be a fresh start?" I smiled faintly. "Sure, Mom." But deep down, I knew Mark didn't believe in fresh starts. Only opportunities. Later that afternoon, he knocked on my door. "So, Lena," he said casually, leaning against the frame, "you gonna wear something fun tonight, or another one of those cardigan things?" I looked up from my laptop, unamused. "I'll wear what I want," he chuckled. "Just saying, it's a party. Don't embarrass yourself." Or, "Mom." He walked away before I could answer. His words hit me like a mosquito bite. Small but infuriating. That was his style. Subtle cuts disguised as jokes. By evening, guests arrived. Music filled the backyard, laughter spilled through the windows, and for a while I almost convinced myself it was a normal night. Mom was glowing, handing out drinks, thanking everyone for coming. David chatted with his business friends. Mark was the life of the party, moving through the crowd like he owned the world. He found me near the food table. "There she is," he said loudly, "the birthday girl." Everyone turned to look. Cameras flashed. I smiled politely, wishing I could disappear. He handed me a cup, his grin sharp. "Just soda and a splash," he said. "Promise." I hesitated, but Mom caught my eye and nodded encouragingly. "Go on, honey. It's your night." So I took the cup. That single decision, trusting him for once, felt harmless in the moment. But as I lifted it to my lips, I noticed something off. His grin lingered too long, like he was waiting for something. Still, I drank. The night unfolded in colors and laughter, the world spinning a little too bright, too loud. Hours later, the laughter turned hollow, my vision blurred, faces distorted. The music slowed into muffled echoes. I remember stumbling, someone catching me, someone shouting, "Get this on video!" Then nothing. The last thing I saw before the darkness swallowed me was Mark's grin. Satisfied, smug, victorious. If I had known then that he'd post those videos for the world to see, I might have fought harder to stay awake, but I didn't. I just fell. Into sleep, into humiliation, into the storm that was waiting for me the next morning. That night was supposed to bring my family together. Instead, it showed me exactly who they really were. And by the time the sun came up, I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a witness, one who would make sure the truth didn't disappear again. The sound of my phone woke me before the sunlight did. It buzzed again and again on the nightstand, the vibration sharp against the wood. My head felt heavy, my throat dry, my body sore. For a moment, I didn't even remember falling asleep. Then I saw the makeup stains on my pillow, the faint smell of alcohol, the shimmer of frosting on my sleeve, and the ache in my stomach that told me something was very, very wrong. I reached for my phone. Notifications exploded across the screen. Tags, comments, messages, laughing emojis. When I opened the first one, my blood froze. It was a video of me. Half conscious, my hair tangled, face covered in cake. I was trying to stand, clutching the table for balance, while people around me shouted, laughed, and filmed. Someone poured champagne over my head as Mark's voice cut through the noise. "Smile for the camera, birthday queen." The video zoomed in on me stumbling and falling, and the crowd roared with laughter. My body felt cold even under the warm blanket. I scrolled down. More clips, more captions, hundreds of comments. "She's gone wild. Journalism major exposed. Mark's sister's a mess." Dozens of shares, thousands of views. My heart raced. I clicked on another post. My face again. Eyes glazed, mouth half open, frozen mid-laugh. People wrote jokes about my expression, about my clothes, about my hangover. But I wasn't drunk. I knew I wasn't drunk. I remembered only one drink, one sip. Then it hit me. The smirk on Mark's face when he handed me that cup. The way he watched me afterward, waiting for something to happen. My breath caught in my throat. He didn't just humiliate me, he drugged me. I ran to the bathroom, splashed water on my face, and stared into the mirror. My reflection looked unfamiliar. Pale, trembling, eyes red, rage started to rise inside me, sharp and steady. I stormed downstairs. Mark was at the kitchen table, scrolling through his phone, eating cereal like it was any other morning. He had the audacity to look up and grin. "Rough night?" The words sliced through me. I slammed my phone on the counter, the video still playing. "What the hell is this, Mark?" He barely glanced at it. "Wow, it already hit 50,000 views?" He laughed. "Guess you're famous now?" "You drugged me. You think this is funny?" He leaned back in his chair, calm as ever. "Relax, Lena. I didn't drug you. I just mixed a little extra in your drink. You were supposed to loosen up. You humiliated me." He shrugged. "You embarrassed yourself. No one forced you to act like that." That was when I realized the kind of monster I was dealing with. Not one who felt guilt, but one who twisted everything to make himself the victim. Mom came in, still wearing her robe, her face pale from the commotion. "What's going on?" "He drugged me and posted videos online," I shouted. Her eyes darted between us, confusion clouding her face. "Mark, tell me that's not true." He laughed softly. "Mom, she's exaggerating. It was just a prank. Everyone knew it was harmless fun." Before she could respond, David walked in, adjusting his tie like a man stepping into a meeting, not a crisis. "What's all this noise?" I turned to him, desperate. "He humiliated me in front of everyone. The videos are online. I didn't consent to any of it." David sighed, slow and heavy, as if my pain was a personal inconvenience. "Lena, I don't know what's gotten into you lately, but you need to stop dramatizing everything. Mark said it was a joke. Boys will be boys." That phrase again, that poisoned sentence that made me want to scream. "Boys will be boys?" I repeated. "You're defending a crime." He folded his arms. "I'm defending my son, and I suggest you drop this before you ruin what's left of this family." Mom stood frozen, torn between her husband and her daughter. "Maybe we should all calm down." "Calm down?" I snapped. "He drugged me, Mom. He violated my privacy." Mark smirked from his chair. "You're just mad people saw who you really are." Something in me broke, not like glass, like steel bending. I looked at them, my stepbrother, my stepfather, my mother, and realized that no apology would ever come. There was no safety here, no justice here, only silence and excuses. I turned to leave, but David's voice stopped me. "Where do you think you're going?" I faced him, my voice steady now. "To make sure this isn't forgotten." He chuckled dryly. "You'll regret making a scene." I looked him straight in the eye. "No, you will." Then I walked out, not crying, not screaming, not breaking, just walking, calm, focused, determined. Because while they laughed at my pain, I was already planning my response. By the time I reached my room, I had stopped shaking. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and whispered to myself, "You wanted attention, Mark? You're about to get more than you can handle." That was the moment I decided I wouldn't just survive what he did. I'd expose it. I'd make sure every person who called it a joke learned what it really was, a crime. And I would make sure the evidence came straight from the place they dismissed most, the quiet girl they thought would never fight back. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because of fear, but because of purpose. I sat in my room with my laptop open, the glow from the screen lighting my face in the dark. Every time I replayed those videos, my stomach churned, but I forced myself to keep watching. I needed proof, cold, undeniable proof that Mark's prank wasn't just humiliating, it was criminal. I downloaded every post, screenshot, and tag. Each clip, each comment became a piece of a puzzle I refused to leave unsolved. He thought deleting the videos would save him, but I knew better. Once something hits the internet, it never truly disappears. While my mother slept in the next room, unaware that her daughter was documenting her own trauma, I created a folder titled Evidence, Carter Case. Inside it, I saved every file that could one day speak louder than my father's dismissive voice. "You'll regret making a scene," he'd said. "No," I thought, "you'll regret underestimating me." By morning, I was done being the quiet, overreacting girl they'd always brushed aside. I was done being polite to people who treated cruelty like comedy. That's when I remembered Rachel Monroe. Rachel was a senior journalist I'd interned under the previous summer. Sharp, fearless, the kind of woman who didn't flinch in rooms full of men twice her age. When I left that internship, she'd told me, "If you ever need help, real help, call me. I don't do gossip, I do truth." I hadn't realized until that moment how serious she'd meant it. I searched my old emails and found her contact, but when I tried to call, the number went straight to voicemail. For a second, I felt deflated, until I remembered something. She'd left journalism months ago. She'd joined the Federal Cybercrime Task Force. I found her official email on the FBI's website and hesitated only for a moment before typing. Subject, urgent. Evidence of digital assault and non-consensual distribution. Body. Hi, Agent Monroe. This is Lena Carter. I was your intern last year at the Beacon Journal. I know this isn't a professional channel, but I have evidence of a federal offense. My stepbrother drugged me, recorded me while incapacitated, and distributed those images and videos online. They went viral before being deleted. I have the files saved, along with IP data, usernames, and timestamps. Please advise. Lena. I stared at the message for a long time before pressing send. Within hours, I got a reply from Agent Rachel Monroe. Lena, I'm so sorry this happened to you. What you're describing falls under federal digital exploitation and unlawful distribution statutes. Do not confront anyone further. Preserve all evidence. I'm forwarding this to the cyber unit immediately. Stay where you are and don't let them know you've reached out. My hands shook as I read her words. This wasn't just moral outrage anymore, it was law. But if I stayed in that house, Mark would know something was up. He wasn't smart, but he was paranoid. He'd check my devices, snoop through my messages, do whatever it took to keep control. So I made a plan. I packed a small bag, laptop, charger, flash drive, and a few clothes, and quietly slipped out just after midnight. I booked a room at a cheap motel on the other side of town, one of those places where no one asks questions if you pay in cash. Mom texted at dawn. "Where are you, honey? Please come home. Don't make this worse." I stared at the screen for a long moment before replying. It's already worse. Now it's just time to make it right. I turned off my phone and focused on the only thing that mattered, making sure justice had a trail. Over the next 24 hours, I organized the files into a full case dossier. Upload metadata, deleted post caches, linked accounts, and user shares. Every screenshot was timestamped, every file name precise. My journalism background paid off. I built the case like a professional investigator. Then, out of habit, I checked Mark's social media. He'd gone live. He was smirking at the camera, sitting in his car. So apparently, my sister thinks she got drugged. He made air quotes. "You guys saw the videos. She was having fun. Some people just can't handle going viral." The comments flooded in. Laughing emojis, people defending him, some even mocking me. "Lena needs therapy." Poor Mark having to live with her. My pulse pounded, but I didn't reply. I didn't post. I didn't argue, because what was coming next wasn't an online fight. It was real. That night, Rachel texted from a secure number. "We've got confirmation. Evidence aligns with felony statutes. I need you to be ready. Don't return home. The operation begins at dawn." My chest tightened, but not from fear. It was relief. For the first time since that nightmare started, someone believed me. And not just believed, but acted. I stared at my reflection in the motel mirror. My hair was messy, my eyes tired, but my gaze was steady. "You wanted to make me a joke, Mark," I whispered. "You're about to be a headline." And as the sun began to rise outside, painting the sky pale gold, I knew the countdown had begun. Not for me, but for him. 48 hours after my birthday, the house that mocked me would hear the sound of justice knocking, and this time, it wouldn't be gentle. The morning of the raid began like any other in the Carter house. Coffee brewing, the faint hum of the news on TV, my stepfather reading the paper as if nothing in the world could touch him. He didn't know that by the time he finished that cup, his perfect little kingdom would crumble. From the motel window across town, I watched the sun crawl over the skyline. I hadn't slept. The adrenaline pulsing through me felt electric, sharp, almost unreal. I was about to witness justice, not from a screen, not from a courtroom months later, but in real time. Agent Rachel Monroe called right on schedule. "Lena, we're executing the warrant at 8 a.m. sharp," she said calmly. "Stay put until I give the all clear. You'll be safe here." Will they know it was me?" I asked. "Eventually, yes," she said. "But by then it won't matter. You'll have the law on your side." Her words steadied me. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving. I was fighting back, and I wasn't alone. At exactly 8:03 a.m., the quiet suburban street erupted. 3 black SUVs screeched to a stop in front of our house. Neighbors peeked from curtains as armed agents in tactical gear fanned out. The front door rattled from a series of heavy knocks. "Federal agents, open the door!" David, ever the authority figure, marched to the foyer, annoyed. "What's the meaning of this?" he barked. But before he could grab the handle, the battering ram swung. The door burst open, wood splintering, and agents poured in, shouting commands. "Hands where we can see them!" "Step back, sir! Do not move!" my mother screamed. Mark stumbled from the hallway in his sweatpants, rubbing his eyes, confused. The sound of boots and radios filled every corner of the house. "What's happening?" Mom cried. "What is this?" The lead agent stepped forward, crisp and professional. "Federal Cybercrime Division. We have a warrant for the arrest of Mark Carter on multiple counts of digital exploitation, unlawful distribution, and possession of controlled substances." Mark froze mid-step, his expression twisting into disbelief. "What? You can't be serious." 2 agents seized his arms before he could finish. "You have the right to remain silent," one read while cuffing him. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." David's face went pale, his arrogance cracking for the first time. "This is insane," he shouted. "My son is not a criminal. Who did this?" "We received a detailed evidence submission," the agent replied flatly, "including video data, metadata trails, and direct admissions. Everything checks out." Mom's voice shook as she whispered, "Oh my God." "Lena." Right then, another black sedan pulled up. Rachel stepped out, professional in her dark blazer, eyes sharp and composed. She nodded at the agents, then looked toward my mother. "Mrs. Carter," she said gently, "we need you to stay back, please." David lunged forward, his voice rising. "You can't just storm into our home like this. Who authorized this?" Rachel met his glare with quiet authority. "The United States Federal Court." At that moment, I walked up the path behind her. My heart pounded as I saw the chaos. My mother shaking, my stepfather red with fury, Mark being led out in handcuffs. Mom's eyes locked onto mine, full of disbelief and heartbreak. "Lena, what's happening?" I stood still, my voice calm, almost too calm. "Justice, Mom, that's what's happening." David turned on me, seething. "You did this? You destroyed this family?" I looked him straight in the eye. "No, Mark did that when he decided my dignity was entertainment. You did that when you decided to protect him instead of me." His jaw clenched, but for once he didn't have a comeback. Mark's voice broke the silence. "Lena, please, I didn't mean for it to go that far." I turned to him slowly. "You drugged me, filmed me, and posted it for the world to laugh at. You didn't just cross a line, Mark. You erased it." He tried to move closer, but the agent tightened his grip. Rachel looked at me, her voice firm yet soft. "You don't have to say anything more, Lena. We've got it from here." As they guided him to the SUV, the neighborhood stood frozen. Curtains shifted, phones recorded. The same kind of public attention he had craved was now his nightmare. Mom covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't know, Lena. I swear I didn't know." I stepped closer and took her trembling hands. "I know, Mom, but you looked away when it mattered. You always did." She nodded weakly, guilt written all over her face. David just stood there, speechless, watching his son being driven away. The man who had always believed he could control every situation, now powerless. Rachel turned to me. "You did everything right. Because of your documentation, the case is airtight." I exhaled slowly. The tension that had lived in my chest for years began to ease. "Thank you," I said softly, "for believing me." She gave a small smile. "You believed in yourself first. That's what made this possible." As the convoy disappeared down the street, I looked back at the broken doorway of the Carter home, the symbol of every dismissal, every lie, every silenced truth, now standing wide open. For the first time, I didn't feel trapped by that house. I felt free of it. I turned to my mother one last time. "You always said families forgive each other," I said quietly. "But some things need to be faced before they can be forgiven." Then I walked away. The morning light felt different, cleaner, sharper, almost forgiving. Behind me, sirens faded. Ahead of me, the world felt wide again. And as I took a deep breath, one truth settled inside me, steady and undeniable. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it knocks at your front door and changes everything. The house felt different after the raid. Quieter, emptier, almost hollow. News traveled fast in our neighborhood, and by the end of the week, everyone knew. The Carter's golden son had been arrested, and the perfect family facade had cracked wide open. I didn't go back home right away. For days, I stayed in the motel, my phone buzzing with messages. Reporters, classmates, even people I barely knew. Some offered sympathy, others just wanted gossip. But I wasn't interested in either. I wanted peace. When I finally returned to the house to collect my things, it didn't feel like home anymore. The front door was still damaged from the raid, wood splintered where the agents had forced it open. The air inside was heavy, like the walls themselves carried shame. Mom was in the kitchen, staring at a cold cup of tea. She looked smaller somehow. Fragile, defeated. "Lena?" she said quietly, as if afraid her voice might break. I didn't know what he'd done. I swear I didn't. I stood there for a long moment before replying. "I know you didn't, Mom, but you didn't want to know either." Tears welled in her eyes. I just wanted peace in this house. "So did I said softly. "But peace built on silence isn't peace. It's denial." She nodded, and for the first time, didn't try to defend Mark. David wasn't there. He'd gone to stay with relatives, or maybe to hide. After the arrest, his company suspended him pending investigation. Turns out, one of the computers seized in the raid was registered under his business account. Whether he knew about Mark's activities or not, the fallout hit him hard. Part of me felt sorry for my mother, but another part of me knew this was the only way she'd ever see the truth. Over the following weeks, the investigation moved quickly. Rachel kept me updated. The charges included distribution of explicit content without consent, use of controlled substances, and digital privacy violations. The evidence I'd gathered was airtight. Mark's lawyer tried to frame it as a prank gone too far, but the prosecution had the video metadata, IP addresses, and timestamps that proved intent. When the trial date arrived, I chose to testify. Walking into that courtroom was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Mark sat across the room, looking smaller than I remembered. His swagger gone, his eyes hollow. He wouldn't meet my gaze. The defense tried to paint me as vindictive, but Rachel's testimony dismantled their narrative. She detailed every federal law he broke, every trace he left online. When the videos played for the jury, the room went dead silent. I didn't cry. I just watched, calm, steady, detached. I wasn't reliving the pain anymore. I was reclaiming it. When the verdict came in, guilty on all counts, the air in that courtroom shifted. It wasn't triumph I felt. It was release. Like an invisible weight had finally lifted off my chest. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, shouting questions. "Lena, do you have any comment? Do you forgive him?" I paused on the courthouse steps, the cameras flashing, and said, "Forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting. What he did wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. And choices have consequences." That line spread across social media the same day. For once, my name was trending not because I was humiliated, but because I had taken back control. Weeks later, I moved back to my college apartment. My friends helped me unpack, and for the first time in months, I laughed. Genuinely laughed. One evening, I opened my laptop and looked at the folder labeled Evidence, Carter Case. I hovered over it for a moment, then deleted it. Not out of anger, but closure. That chapter was over. My mom started therapy soon after. We spoke on the phone every few days. She was trying, really trying, to face the things she'd ignored for years. Maybe someday we'd rebuild something new, not the fragile piece we used to have, but an honest one. As for David, he never called, and that was fine. I didn't need validation from someone who measured worth by silence. Sometimes at night, I replay that final moment. The agents at the door, my mother's scream, my calm words echoing through the chaos. Justice doesn't have age limits. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. To myself, and to anyone who's ever been told to let it go or stop being dramatic. Because justice isn't loud or vengeful. It's steady. It's patient. And when it arrives, it doesn't ask permission. I closed my laptop and looked out the window at the city lights flickering in the distance. My story had gone viral again, this time shared as a reminder that silence protects the wrong people. And as I watched the world move on, I whispered one last line. Not for the internet, but for me. They laughed when I said it wasn't over. They're not laughing anymore. Fade to black. Justice doesn't have age limits. As the screen fades from Lena's quiet reflection to soft instrumental music, her voice returns, calm, strong, and full of resolve. Sometimes justice takes time. Sometimes it knocks when everyone least expects it. But it always finds its way, no matter who tries to silence it. A short pause. Her tone deepens, sincere and steady. If this story moved you, remember this. Speaking up isn't weakness, it's power. And your voice might be the one thing that turns fear into freedom. The background fades into a subtle, dark-to-light gradient as her final words echo. Thank you for watching my story. And if you believe justice should never be silenced, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. The screen then displays the closing message in bold white text against a soft black background. Justice doesn't have age limits.